We are live.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Sixth Townhall of the ongoing restructuring process for the WazirX platform and ZI Private Limited. My name is George Gui. I'm a director with the CRO team that is advising the ZI team on this ongoing scheme process. This is the sixth town hall in the restructuring process. And in this town hall, we will be focusing specifically on the scheme process and timelines for the ongoing scheme process, which kicked off earlier this week on 10th February. This town hall is intended to provide a video guide for creditors for the scheme process, and the slides that you see on screen will be provided to all creditors so that you can refer to it as you progress through the scheme process, which is estimated to take the next couple of months. For the purposes of this specific sixth town hall, we will be focusing on the scheme process and timelines, and we are intending to keep the town hall to about 1.5 hours, from 5:30 p.m. IST to 7 p.m. IST. There will be a Q&A session at the end. However, this Q&A session will be specifically focused on scheme process and timelines. So to the extent that you have questions about the terms of the scheme and the recoveries contemplated in the scheme, that will be covered in the seventh town hall, which is formally part of the court-mandated scheme process and will represent the online scheme meeting at which the full ZI team and the CRO team will be here to answer your questions on the terms of the scheme and the associated recoveries. For that purpose, we will be focusing on scheme process questions, and we will be giving priority to creditors who are currently in the Zoom waiting room to pose questions on the scheme process and timelines so that we can clarify your doubts. If you're watching this on YouTube and have a question to ask, please join the Zoom meeting link, and you'll be placed in the waiting room where you undergo a verification process. This verification process will allow the ZI team to confirm that you as a participant are a scheme creditor, and as such, will be allowed to participate in the live Q&A towards the end of this discussion. You see here a table of contents where first we will provide a progress update, followed by a brief scheme timeline, which was also sent to all creditors earlier this week as part of the explanatory statement, followed by some guides on how to navigate the various pages and platforms that were brought online for the purposes of the scheme process. We'll be explaining certain things like the claims page, 18 July page on the WazirX platform, the Rebalanced net liquid platform asset page on the WazirX platform, the integration between the WazirX platform and the CRO Issuer Services platform in respect of the three key forms in this scheme process. Firstly, the claim review and dispute form. Secondly, the inspection request form. And thirdly, the voting form. We will also provide a bit of a run-through on what we call the preliminary list of creditors, which is presently viewable on the WazirX platform. There's a bit of a progress update. We have been in this restructuring process since early August, where ZI applied to the High Court of Singapore for for a moratorium. And as a result of that moratorium, we have made an application to the court, which was granted for leave to convene a scheme meeting. The scheme documents, including the final scheme of arrangement and explanatory statement, were issued to all creditors earlier this week on Monday, 10 February 2025, kickstarting the scheme process formally. Where we are now is the sixth town hall, which is a scheme process town hall, which is ongoing right now on 12 February from 5:30 p.m. IST to 7 p.m. IST. And this intends to explain the scheme process and timelines for creditors to understand how best to interact with this process. Now, for the purposes of this town hall, specifically, the content and the Q&A, as previously described, will focus on the process and timelines with priority given to Q&A on the timelines and process. The next town hall is scheduled for 19 February 2025, 5:30 p.m. IST, and this will be the 7th town hall and scheme online meeting, formally as part of the scheme process mandated by the court to explain the terms and recoveries of the scheme. There will be a live Q&A session for that specific town hall and online meeting, where the focus will not be on scheme process, but rather on the terms of the scheme and recoveries of the scheme contemplated for creditors. As previously described, we have brought on several resources: the preliminary creditors list, a snapshot of the balances as at 18 July 2024, 1 p.m. IST, and a snapshot of Rebalanced net liquid platform assets, all of which can be viewed on the WazirX platform. And I will take you through this in due course. What kicked off early this week, 10 February 2025, 5 p.m. Singapore time, is the claim review disputes process, which is now open to all users of the WazirX platform and will run from 10 February 2025, 5 p.m. Singapore time to 19 February 2025, 5 p.m. Singapore time via the Crow Issuer Services platform, accessible via an action card on the WazirX platform. This will run the span of 7 business days and allows creditors to submit a dispute in relation to their claim if they disagree with the company's records. Later in the process, there will be voting on the proposed scheme, which is planned for the period 19th to 28th March, 5 p.m. Singapore time, also via the KIS platform. And I'll take you through in a bit more detail later on. Right now, we're doing everything that we can to pass an effective scheme and reopen distributions as soon as possible. However, this will be subject to court formalities and timelines. The next section will set out the scheme timeline, which was also disclosed in the explanatory statement circulated earlier this week to all creditors. This table may look familiar to some of you if you have been keeping up with the process. Broadly speaking, we are currently at the guidance phase where ZI holds a town hall to brief the scheme creditors on the scheme process. This is where we are right now, 12 February 2025, started at 8 p.m. SGT, which will be followed by the online webinar on 19 February. We are also currently in the disputes process, which will last from 10 February to 19 February. And all disputes will be adjudicated by an independent assessor, Alvarez and Marcel, who has been appointed by court. And they are expected to complete the adjudication of all disputes by 28 February, following which the preliminary creditors list will be updated to the updated list of creditors, taking into account all approved disputes. Once this is done, you'll be issued a notice by ZI on how you may view the updated list of creditors, which also kickstarts the inspection request period, which is expected to last 3 business days from 5th March to 10th March 2025. As directed by the court, the company will also be complying with the disclosure commitments by 10th March 2025, which include third-party verification of the financial information relied upon in the explanatory statement. For this purpose, we have engaged Alvarez and Marcel, the independent assessor, to run this third-party verification, which is presently ongoing. Once this is done, the company will issue a notice to all creditors on 10th March, which will contain the explanatory statement, if there are any applicable amendments as a result of the third-party verification process, and details in respect of a second online webinar, if applicable, arising from the changes made, any changes to the explanatory statement, if applicable. And lastly, you will be provided with details on the voting period. The independent assessor is expected to adjudicate inspection requests by 13 March. And if a second online webinar is necessary, the timing will be provided to creditors at the time of this notice on 10th March. It is only after this second online webinar, if necessary, and this second notice, that the voting period will commence, which is currently scheduled between 19 March 5 p.m. Singapore time and 28 March 5 p.m. Singapore time, over a period of 7 business days, during which you will be able to vote on the scheme via the KIS platform. Once the voting concludes, Zetai will submit the votes for verification by the independent assessor, Alvarez and Marcel, who will then verify the votes and write to Zetai and the scheme manager on the verification. Once the verification is done, Zetai will issue a notice to all scheme creditors on the results of the vote and update the updated list of creditors to reflect on a per creditor basis how each creditor voted. Now, it is important to note that this creditor list, preliminary and updated, will be anonymized to preserve creditors' privacy and security. However, for the purposes of transparency, it is important that we share the outcome of the vote. Once the results of the vote are in, which is expected 28 March, and verified, which is expected in early April, the company will be in a position, if the vote for the scheme was passed according to the requisite threshold set out in Singapore statute, to write to court for an application to sanction the approved scheme. And it's only once the court provides a sanction, issues its court order, and we file the court order with the regulatory authorities in Singapore, will the scheme be effective. And once the scheme is effective, within 10 business days, the first distribution from Rebalanced net liquid platform assets can occur. We are doing everything that we can to push this as early as possible. However, ultimately, it is subject to court formalities and timelines. And we ask for your understanding in this process, as these court formalities are outside of our control. We are doing everything operationally possible to expedite this for the benefit of scheme creditors. Now, onto the navigation. The first page I'd like to talk about is the 18 July page, which shows your balances and your claims under this proposed scheme of arrangement. The way to navigate to this page is to click on the action card, which, if you're using the WazirX mobile app, will be on the home page. If you're on the WazirX website, click on the funds page, and then click on the action card from the funds page to get to that pop-up. Broadly speaking, this page reflects the token balances of creditors as at 18 July, 1 p.m. IST, which is also the way that claims and balances are being calculated according to the proposed scheme. The pricing methodology is set out in the scheme of arrangement, clause 1.1d, and is valued in US dollars as at 18 July 2024, 1 p.m. IST. This will form the basis of your claim in the scheme. There are some exclusions for claims that are excluded from the scheme, such as any crypto or stable coins deposited after 18 July 1 p.m. IST, any INR balances, and any token balances held by law enforcement agencies, which are also subject to a proprietary claim. All of these are excluded from the scheme. You will not see them in this balance page. Lastly, while the scheme is carried out in a US dollar denomination, we have provided, for illustrative purposes and for you to understand, a USD to INR conversion via a toggle. This conversion rate is pulled from CoinMarketCap as at 18 July. However, just please note that your claims and balances are denominated in USD and not INR, and the INR numbers are not a term of the scheme, whereas USD balances are. Once you click the action card, basically you'll be able to view on the left side of the screen the total balances. There are some details at the top half of it that set out the basis on which this is prepared, as well as the unique scheme creditor ID, which will be unique to you and used throughout this proposed scheme process. You can click this little button on the left side to copy it if you like. Just below it is the USD to INR toggle that we discussed earlier. And below that, there's a tile that states your balance in US dollars. This balance in US dollars is presently rounded to 2 decimal places. We are working to update this for a bit more granularity to allow creditors a bit more clarity on the way that the token breakdown adds up to the total balance. If you scroll further down on this screen, you get the number 3, the token breakdown, which shows token by token how many tokens of each denomination that scheme creditors had in their WazirX platform account balances as of 18 July 2024, 1 p.m. IST. That's the number you see next to the token in gray, along with the price, which is the price of the token as set out in the scheme methodology below the token. On the right side of the screen will be the USD value of each token that contributes to the overall claim, which is basically a token balance multiplied by your price, which will get you this number. And the sum total of these numbers in the token breakdown will get you to the overall balance here. Please note that what you see on screen is purely for illustrative purposes. Do not rely on this. The calculations will be correct when you view your balances in the WazirX platform. On to the next. We'll go on to the section that tells you how to navigate the rebalanced net liquid platform assets section of the WazirX platform. So this rebalanced net liquid platform asset section is not a requirement under the scheme, but what we have done, what we have worked out with the WazirX team is an intuitive way of actually representing the way that the rebalancing affects each individual creditor on an individual basis, based on the way that the rebalancing has affected the tokens that they had in their WazirX platform balances as at 18 July. The rebalancing has concluded. We have disclosed the outcome of the rebalancing in an explanatory statement that was shared earlier this week. And as a result, I'm pleased to announce that as a result of the rebalancing, we're able to provide an estimated 85.3% pari passu USD percentage recovery to all scheme creditors, regardless of the kinds of tokens that you hold, subject to minor and unavoidable variances of plus minus 0.5%. Please note that this is based on a USD percentage recovery, and the underlying token recoveries that were derived from the rebalancing ultimately are valued at the prices used in the rebalancing, and also disclosed in the explanatory statement, which get each creditor that specific pari passu recovery in line with everyone else. We have been the aim of the rebalancing is to align the value in net liquid platform assets across different token denominations with the value allocated across the claims in various token denominations. And as such, we have been prioritizing efficiency in process, as well as transparency and fairness, which is why everyone gets 85.3% on average. Now that we've completed the rebalancing process, you can check how the rebalancing has affected you. Basically, rebalancing has locked in token recoveries for every creditor, and we'll be holding it in tokens. If the scheme is successful, within 10 business days of the scheme being effective, these tokens that we have locked in for you will be distributed to you in token in the first distribution. By holding it in token, we allow creditors like yourselves to take on market exposure for those tokens, which we understand is a key priority for creditors. This also means that if between the time of the rebalancing and distribution, the price of the tokens rebalanced for you has gone up in value, you will capture that upside. None of the upside is retained by ZI, and all upside will go to creditors. Conversely, if the prices decrease, then there'll be reduced USD recoveries at the time of first distribution. And this is a natural outcome of the way that the rebalancing has been carried out. Ultimately, the pari passu nature of the rebalancing is reflected in the 85.3% USD recovery to all creditors. Now, how do we navigate there? Similar to the balances 18 July page, we are using action cards If you're on a mobile app, the action card will be on the home page. You see that on the left side of the screen. Click that and you'll jump to it. On the WazirX website, you have to navigate to the funds page where you will see the action card. You click that and you'll get there. Once you click it, you'll see what is on the right side of the screen. You will see a tile at the top of the screen that sets out the value of the rebalanced NLPA as a result of the rebalancing, and the effective fiat recovery percentage as a result of that rebalancing at the time of rebalancing. So these numbers do not change. These are static. They represent the value that has been locked in and the recovery percentage in USD that have been locked in at the time of the rebalancing. We also feature a toggle here to toggle between USD and INR. As before, this is just for indicative purposes. Below the tile, you'll see some detail in respect of the rebalancing and the NLPA. Ultimately, what we're trying to get to here is that it's a clear communication of what the rebalancing means for you as a creditor and the tokens that you'll be receiving in the first distribution if you vote for the scheme. Support the scheme, get the scheme approved with your support, and have it ultimately sanctioned by the court and effective. Those are the tokens that you'll be getting back in the first distribution. Now the question really is, if you got 85.3% at that point, what will it be worth now? Because that point that we rebalanced it is in the past. That brings us to number 3. We have another tile, if you scroll down the page, to show you the current value of the rebalanced tokens, which is valued from CoinMarketCap live prices. There's also a token breakdown, which shows for each token denomination how many tokens we have rebalanced for you, and the current live pricing along with the current live USD value for that specific token. Adding all of these tokens up will get you to the current value in US dollars, which represent the current value as opposed to the value that it was at the time of rebalancing. Because of the price difference and passage of time between now and when it was targeted for rebalancing, this number will not get you 85.3%. And indeed, this number will be different from creditor to creditor depending on the exposure to different token denominations and the underlying price movement on those tokens. Worth noting is that there are certain tokens that are not available for compensation in just the native token due to low liquidity, and as such, some may be compensated in USDT due to lack of liquidity, and this will be indicated. There are also certain tokens, such as what you see on screen here, for example, FTM to S, Matic to POL. They have undergone swaps by the issuer of the token. As such, we're not able to issue you the original token like FTM or Matic, but we'll instead distribute S and POL. Please note that this rebalancing is effectively complete. However, because the starting point of the rebalancing is based on the calculation of balances and claims, and the balances and claims are subject to an adjudication process by the independent assessor, there could be some changes in the claims that may ultimately result in a bit of a difference in the rebalanced value of net liquid platform assets. We don't think that this is going to be a material change. However, because the intention is to give a pari passu USD percentage recovery distribution to all creditors, should the variance around that average on an individual creditor basis vary too much, the company may need to undertake a minor and partial follow-on rebalancing just to ensure that the variance around the average is not too large and creditors are largely getting a pari passu distribution. Now that's what's on the WazirX platform. Next, I'd like to talk about the claim review and dispute process. And this claim review and dispute process allows creditors to review their claims. And if they have issues with the claims or disagreements, they may submit a dispute, which will be reviewed by an independent assessor, Alvarez and Marsal. To the extent that the IA's adjudication on your claim is final, within this specific scheme process, subject to the ability for creditors to make an appeal to in writing to the court. Now, the salient points and purposes here is just basically to allow creditors to review their claims and to submit a dispute if they disagree with the company's records, which will occur between 10 February 2025 to 19 February 2025, 5 p.m. SGT to 5 p.m. SGT. Please note that if you agree with the claims as set out on the WazirX website or the KIS platform, you do not have to submit a dispute. This process is optional. If you do want to submit a dispute, however, a dispute can only be raised once and needs to be backed by a proper explanation and supporting documentation sufficient for the IA to perform their assessment and adjudicate the dispute. This process will be carried out on the KIS platform via redirection from the WazirX platform, which I'll go into a bit more detail. Please note that a dispute can only be raised once, and you can't amend the forms once it is submitted. You can only submit a dispute through this process. There will not be any acceptances for any dispute submitted outside of these processes. The IA reserves the right to dismiss disputes if it deems it frivolous and or baseless. And the IA may also reach out to creditors for additional information to substantiate their disputes. And creditors are encouraged to provide this information to the satisfaction of the IA within 7 calendar days. If you fail to do so, your dispute may be dismissed. As before, the IA's decision is final, subject to an application for review by the Singapore court within 7 days of such determination. Please note that the scheme process will continue regardless of any outstanding applications. On the right side of the screen, we have details on how to get to the claim review process, but broadly speaking, it goes also via action card. On the WazirX platform, you have an action card. You click on it, a consent page will pop up. Once you give the consent, you can visit the KIS platform, review your claim there, and submit a dispute if you think that you don't agree with the company's records. Once all disputes have been adjudicated, the preliminary list of creditors, which is, for avoidance of doubt, anonymized to protect your privacy, will be updated to reflect any claim disputes approved by the IA. Now on to the actual process. On the left side of the screen, as before, if you're on the app, click the action card on the home page. That will pop up the consent page on the right side of the screen. If you're on the WazirX website, navigate to the funds page and click the action card there. I would like to emphasize one very important note at the bottom left-hand corner of the screen. This claim and review dispute process is solely for creditors to dispute their claims and balances. It is not for creditors to dispute assets rebalanced for them, and any disputes subjected in respect of rebalanced assets will be automatically rejected. Similarly, it is token prices are for the valuation of claims are a term of the scheme at clause 1.1d of the scheme of arrangement circulated earlier this week. There's a term of the scheme, and as such, the disputes on token prices will be automatically rejected as well. The claim dispute review and dispute process is not the appropriate forum to submit a dispute in respect of rebalanced assets and or token prices. Please do not submit disputes in respect of rebalanced assets and or token prices. This is for you to dispute claims only. I cannot emphasize this enough. On the right side of the screen, once you click the action card, will be the some detail on the nature of the review and dispute process, as well as the consent solicitation. You will need to click the checkbox for the consent before you're able to agree and continue. Please read these carefully. There are some exclusions in this claim and review process that will also be subject to automatic rejection if a dispute is submitted in respect of them, such as INR balances, which is not part of the scheme. crypto or stablecoin balances deposited after 18 July, 1 p.m. IST, which is also not part of the scheme. Please note that any dispute must be accompanied by an explanation and supporting documentation sufficient for the IA to adequately adjudicate the scheme, the dispute. And the IA may, but is not obliged to reach out for further information. Lastly, you will, in order to participate in this process, you will need to consent to share your personal data, such as your registered name, registered email, and WazirX account token balances with Crow Issuer services and the IA solely for the purposes of this scheme process. Check the box, click agree and continue, and we move on. Clicking that, give it a bit of time, the page needs to load. Basically, it's a redirect from the WazirX platform to the KIS platform where your details are securely sent from WazirX to the KIS platform. And once you have loaded that page, you will see a disclaimer. Please read the disclaimer carefully before scrolling down to view your scheme creditor specific details. First thing you will see is number 2. Basically, just your personal information associated with your account. You will have the unique scheme creditor ID, which I mentioned earlier. This will be used throughout the process and is unique to each scheme creditor. Please do not tell anyone keep this private to yourself. This is your unique ID. And your registered email address, first name, last name. This is also private information. Do not share this with any other creditor. Next will be, if you scroll down further, will be a verify claim balances section where we set out the names, the token denominations, the prices under the scheme, and the quantities in your WazirX platform as at 18 July 2024, 1 p.m. IST, along with a final column that has the USD value for each token denomination. We also have the total claim amount here in US dollars, which is the sum of all these numbers. Now, we have had some feedback on the granularity provided here. Currently, we have provided 2 decimal places, and we are looking to increase that to 4 or 5 decimal places just to make it clearer to creditors how the sum of all of these can add up to the claim amount, as we have received some feedback that there are some differences in rounding errors. That will go live shortly. Next, we have an option to raise a dispute. If you have a dispute regarding your balances, click yes and proceed. If you don't have a dispute regarding your balance, you can click no and proceed. Keep in mind that dispute submission is entirely optional. Please only submit a dispute if you actually have a dispute. If not, you can safely disregard this process if you agree with the claim balances shown on screen. If you aim to submit a dispute, click yes in the previous section, which will allow you to provide what you think the appropriate quantity is for each token that's currently inside your account. Sorry, reflected in your WazirX platform account as of 18 July according to company records. This section will be autofilled. It will show you on a token by token basis. If you agree with the tokens, with that specific token details, click yes in this blue section. If you don't agree, you click no, at which point you will be able to change the amended quantity to what you think is the appropriate quantity. Provide notes or comments for an explanation. Please note that this is mandatory. You will not be able to submit the form if you don't fill this out. And lastly, provide supporting documentation in the prescribed formats. The explanation and the documentation are mandatory, very important. Please do not miss this out, as you can only submit a dispute form once. If you submit a dispute form without an explanation or supporting documentation, the IA is not going to have sufficient detail for them to appropriately adjudicate your claim. As such, you risk the adjudication in the form of a rejection unless you provide sufficient background and documentation. If you have missing token denominations, for example, you think there's a token that was in your platform account at 18 July 2024, 1 p.m. IST, that is not on the list, you can also tick this box here. You can choose the number of tokens to add. and the number for the number of tokens you indicate in this box, you have the number of drop downs, in this case 2. As before, you will need to provide notes and supporting documentation. Once you enter that, this section will be auto-filled, and we can proceed to this next section called additional claims. Basically, additional claims allow you to raise any other claims in addition to whatever is reflected in your platform balances. If you think you have an additional claim, press yes. If not, press no. Provide the details as before, and supporting documentation as before. Once you're done with that process, you will need to check this checkbox to acknowledge that this submission of the disputes and additional claims form is a one-time thing. You please review the form carefully before clicking this submit button below. And once you click the submit button, you will be redirected to the WazirX platform, and you'll receive a confirmation email from the KIS platform to confirm receipt of your dispute. Now, we talked a lot about claims. This is another requirement of the scheme, the publication of a preliminary list of creditors. Basically, this is viewable via action card in the WazirX platform as well, and it sets out all the creditors that are captured according to company records under the scheme, and is anonymized to protect creditors' privacy and security. The way to view it is via action card. As before, on the mobile app, click the action card on the homepage on the WazirX website, navigate to the funds page and click the action card there. The intention of this preliminary list of creditors is to ensure creditors have visibility into their claims being captured in the process, and to allow them the ability to identify claims that they may want to potentially inspect in the inspection request process, which I'll explain shortly. On the creditor list page, basically, you'll be able to search for specific claims using unique scheme creditor IDs here. Paste this in, and you can find a specific unique scheme creditor ID. You may want to paste your own in, but to make it easier for you to find your own claim in the list, there's a Find My Balance button, which when pressed will jump to your balance in the list. You may also use this search by unique ID to locate another specific scheme creditor's balance. And that scheme sorry, just going back a bit, it's worth clarifying that this is intended to be a comprehensive list of creditors in the scheme. This list will be updated to reflect successfully adjudicated disputes, and will move from the preliminary creditors list to the updated creditors list. And one thing I'd like to flag here is at the end of these creditors list, you will notice a large number of creditors with balances labeled as 0 with an asterisk. I'd like to clarify that these creditors are users of the platform with token balances in their WazirX accounts as at 18 July 2024 that are valued in line with pricing methodology set out in the scheme and have a claim of more than 0. So it's labeled as 0 with an asterisk because these creditors have claims that are so small that we are not able to practically represent the claims. I believe these claims are small enough to exceed 8 decimal places, which will make it untenable to represent them. And as such, we have represented them as 0 with an asterisk and a footnote to explain. These creditors are still creditors of the scheme because they have non-zero balances, and as such, they are not being excluded from the scheme process, because to do so will be unfair to them and their non-zero balances. They will be able to participate in the scheme, just like everyone else with a non-zero balance on the platform. Now, the next two sections are about inspection requests and voting. Inspection requests and voting have not started yet. We have planned out the structure of these forms on the KIS platform. They will go live later on in line with the scheme platforms, but for the purposes of this town hall, we are putting them on screen, the draft version, which is subject to refinement, just so we can walk you through the process on how to navigate this. There may be some minor differences when it finally goes live, But ultimately, structurally, it's not going to change, and I want to use this opportunity to take you through it. So the inspection request process allows scheme creditors to submit inspection requests for another scheme creditor's approved claim. As with the claim review and disputes process, the inspection request is optional. And if you want to submit a claim inspection request, you must provide a valid reason and supporting documentation. A claim inspection request can only be submitted once by each scheme creditor, but in that one request, you may submit a request to inspect more than one scheme creditor's claim at a time. As with the claim review and dispute process, this inspection request process will be carried out via the KIS platform. And similar to the dispute process, all inspection requests will be adjudicated by the court-appointed independent assessor, Alvarez and Marsal. Moving into the process, as before, on the mobile app, click the action card on the home page. On the WazirX website, navigate to the funds page and click the action card there. You'll pop up a similar set of explanations in respect of this process. You will have to check this box to ensure that you have read and understood the following. The key one is that an explanation and supporting documentation must be provided. Any inspection request submitted without this will be automatically rejected by the IA, and the IA may reach out to scheme creditors to clarify submissions. Lastly, we have the personal data consent sharing with KIS and IA solely for this scheme process. Click agree and continue. You come to the inspection form. If you want to inspect the approved claim of another creditor, click yes. If you don't want to, you can click no, or you can just exit the page. As I said before, this process is entirely optional. Once you click yes, please read the disclaimer carefully. Verify your personal information. And then in section 4, enter the WazirX unique scheme creditor ID of the creditor whose claim you want to inspect. And you can submit more than one scheme creditor ID here to inspect different creditors' claims. However, you will need to provide a basis for your request, an explanation for each request that you put through for a different scheme creditor, and supporting documentations to justify why you are making this request. Once done, check the boxes. Read carefully, check the boxes. Please ensure that you read this carefully and check it, because you can, as with the disputes, you can only submit this once. Once you're happy, click submit, and you'll receive a confirmation email from the KIS system that they have received your inspection request and have forwarded on to the independent assessor. Lastly, voting. The voting page is in draft form as well, similar to the inspection request page, but it is important for your knowledge that we share and do a walkthrough of how this is best carried out. When voting goes live, you will be notified. We will have a fresh action card on the WazirX app or on the funds page of the WazirX website. This is not available now, neither is the inspection request, because inspection and voting is not yet live. These will go up when the windows open for voting and inspection, and you will be notified of this. Click this action card, and you'll jump to this voting page with some detail and a checkbox in respect of the voting. Here, you will need to agree to sharing your personal data with KIS and the IA solely for scheme purposes, similar to participation in the claim review and dispute process and the inspection process. Check that, press agree and continue. Please read carefully the disclaimer at the top. Verify your personal information. Verify your approved claim balances, which are for the avoidance of doubt. In the event that the claim disputes process overruns because of a significant volume of disputes that the IA is not able to completely adjudicate in time for the voting process, these numbers may not be final, but rest assured, the final outcome of the voting process will account for all approved disputes as adjudicated by the IAs. Ultimately, the IA will be verifying the voting, and the details of the verification will be provided to all scheme creditors in the form of the updated creditors list. Voting, the key part. There's only the voting choice is simple. You either vote for the scheme, which is the first option, or against the scheme, which is the second option. Please check the box that you wish to vote for. And please note that you will not be able to vote more than once. Once you submit this form, you cannot take it back. So please review the scheme documentation. Approach the WazirX team via inquiries at WazirX to clarify your doubts. They can direct you to any to the volume of supporting information and infographics and explanations to help clarify your doubts. And once you are ready to vote, during the voting process, click on the voting and click submit. Once you submit, you will get a notification that the form has been submitted and a confirmation via email from the KIS system that your vote has been captured. Once your vote has been captured, and once everyone's vote has been captured, at the end of the voting process, the sum total of all votes will be sent to the IA for third-party verification. They will be integrating the final outcome of all adjudicated disputes that are approved into that final voting tally that they will verify, generate a third-party independent assessor verification report, which will subsequently be shared with all creditors and with the court. Concurrently, we will also update the updated list of creditors to reflect the voting choices for creditors who voted in the scheme, whether it was for, against, or did not vote. Ultimately, this is aimed to improve transparency in the process to ensure that our creditors have as clear a view as possible into the data that the IA has successfully verified. Voting is not the end, however. Once voting is carried out, the company, subject to the voting passing the legally mandated requirements of at least 50% in value by count of scheme creditors present and voting, and at least 75% by value of scheme creditors present and voting, the company will make an application to the Singapore court for the sanction of the creditor approved scheme. Once that application is made, which is expected sometime in April, the ball is in the court. The ball is with the court. It will be subject to the court's schedule and timelines. And once the court hears the application, if it is sanctioned at that hearing, they will generate a court order, which we will have to file with the regulatory authorities here in Singapore. Once the regulatory authorities in Singapore reflect the filing, it is only then that the scheme will be effective, and shortly thereafter, we will be able to commence the first distribution and distribute the rebalanced net liquid platform assets in tokens to all scheme creditors in line with the terms of the scheme. That's all for now. Basically, we are moving into the Q&A session. I've got a few resources on screen. For general inquiries, write to enquiries@wazirx.com. They can help you out. If you have anything specifically for the Committee of Creditors, the COC, write to coc.enquiries@wazirx.com. And if you have any technical issues specific to the KIS platform for the claim, disputes, inspection and voting platform, please write to wazirx@is.clo.com. Don't worry if you don't get the detail here. This set of slides will be circulated to all creditors following this town hall, as the intention of this town hall and the set of slides is to provide you with a bit of guidance and a volume of information on how best to navigate this scheme process, which we're trying to make as efficient and swift as possible for the benefit of all scheme creditors. We have now come to the end of the content for this Sixth Town Hall. We still have approximately 40 minutes left for Q&A. And please note, this Q&A is specifically for the scheme process and timelines only. All other inquiries, you can email us at the addresses below, or you can raise them in live Q&A in the 7th Town Hall on 19 February 2025, 8 p.m. Singapore time, 5:30 p.m. IST. It is at that formal town hall where we will be discussing the terms of the scheme, the financial recoveries to creditors, as detailed in the scheme document and the explanatory statement. I repeat, for the purposes of this Q&A, we will be prioritizing questions on scheme process and timelines. To the extent that users in the waiting room have scheme process questions, you will be prioritized. And if we have any time outstanding at the end, we may address some questions in respect of scheme terms and recoveries. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. And Zeta team, can you please let the first 1 or 2 creditors in from the waiting room so that we may address their questions live?
Sure, George. Hello.
Hi, Roman. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How may I help you?
Okay. So I have few questions. I don't know if you are the right person to answer those, but as a user of WazirX, it's really difficult for me to follow these town halls. Okay, I don't have time and I don't have the technicalities of understanding. Is there an overview that you guys have planned to show at the end for a simple user like a layman like me, to what I need to do and if I need to do anything? Because I think it's the 6th one, right? I honestly
Yeah.
don't have time to go through everything, and I don't have the technical knowledge also to understand this. So, is there a simple overview that you guys have planned?
Yes, absolutely, Roman. Fully agreed. Unless you have been following from the very beginning and in detail, it can be challenging to catch up. And we are committed to making this as easy as possible. So this is the 6th town hall, right? Dedicated to the scheme process. The scheme, once we finish this town hall, you'll be able to view it on YouTube subsequently. We'll also circulate the slides that we presented earlier. That will guide you through how to interact with the scheme process. But that's just procedural, right? They can help you with the process. It doesn't tell you about the scheme itself. Now, the scheme terms and recoveries, the details on the scheme is expected for the 7th town hall on the 19th of February, 8 p.m. Singapore time, 5:30 p.m. IST. We'll do something similar, except the town hall will be about the terms of the scheme and how the scheme is structured, how the scheme results in recoveries to creditors, and why it is better than the alternative. And similar, that town hall will also be on YouTube for you to view at your own time, and we'll also circulate the slides. We have a volume of scheme documentation which went out to creditors in the form of the scheme and the explanatory statement earlier this week. Those are voluminous documents, a lot of pages, a lot of technicality. They are required by court, so we have to shoot them out to creditors, and they provide all the detail that they could possibly want. But we understand that it may be a bit much for many creditors like yourselves. So I would suggest that you focus on the slides from this town hall to guide you through the process, and the next town hall to guide you through the terms of the scheme and what the scheme means for you as a creditor. Does that help?
Yeah. So just one more question. So if I have to ask you to summarize in 2 lines for me that what I as a user need to do from my end. I just had my funds, my crypto in WazirX. That's all I know. I don't know what happened, how it happened, what I'm supposed to do. So what am I supposed to do from a user's end to retrieve that? Or if you could just summarize it for me.
Okay. At its simplest, we are proposing a scheme as the fastest, fairest, and most effective way to get creditors back as high recoveries as possible, as quickly as possible.
Mm-hmm.
We have spent a lot of time and effort to structure this to make it as simple and as easy and as effective for all creditors as possible. My suggestion would be to log on to the WazirX app, review the page that called Rebalanced Net Liquid Platform Assets. That will show the tokens that will be distributing to you as a creditor if the scheme is effective with your support, hopefully. And if the scheme is effective, that will be distributed in a couple of months. Whereas the alternative, if the scheme fails because of insufficient support, the earliest distribution that creditors can get is likely to be in 2 years, and it's unlikely to be in token, which means you miss out on upside from the market. Whereas what we are saying is that we'll distribute it in 2 months or thereabouts. In token, you can put that back into the market, you can reinvest it, the token is in your hands at that point. In our view, that is the most effective way to run this restructuring. We know what creditors want. We are trying to give creditors what they want, a swift, fair, and effective resolution in a short period of time.
I don't think it's fair. I don't know about others, but it's not fair. But anyways, thanks a lot for summarizing. But me as a user, I don't need to do anything, right? It's just you guys are.
We will advise you to check the outcome of the rebalancing for you on the WazirX platform, and then and if you think you want to support the scheme, participate in the voting subsequently. Do also check and confirm that there are no issues with your balances, and if they are, submit a dispute before the closing of the disputes period.
Cool. Thanks.
No, I think Mr. Roman's question is not answered. I think he has to vote for it, right?
Yeah. So how do I do that? Like, will I get a mail or something?
Right? We'll have to take a stand, either supporting or against. Now, in order to execute these things, I think we need to vote. So when is it supposed to be done? 11th, you said?
Correct. So the voting is expected to be between 19 and 28 March. So before that happens, we will send you a notice at least 7 days in advance to tell you that the voting is opening. And then when it opens, you'll be able to go in and vote.
Cool.
So that is through the site or through the mail? You send a mail and we respond in the mail? It'll
be both. We'll send you an email notice, and then on the site, you'll see the action card for the voting.
Okay, now when I check my site, the value shown, the portfolio values in 3 different places. Like for example, in one places you are given creditors list. In that the value is different. In my portfolio, the value is different. 3 different values are being shown.
Yeah. So thanks, Rajiv. I think the key thing to focus on in the WazirX app or website is that there are 3 main pages there in the scheme. I went through them earlier. One is the balances 18 July page. That is your claim. Another one is the rebalancing page, rebalanced net liquid platform assets. That's what we have rebalanced for you specifically. That's what will be released and distributed in the event of an effective scheme in about a couple of months. And lastly is the preliminary list of creditors. That's just a list of all creditors across the entire scheme. You can find your claim in there via the Find My Claim button. Now, Rajiv, I think the source of confusion comes from what WazirX has historically referred to as the funds page. All WazirX users are familiar with the funds page, right? And I just want to highlight, for the purposes of this restructuring, the funds page is not relevant. The funds page, when you load it, will have a banner that comes up that specifies that this is not relevant to the current restructuring. And ideally, we would remove the funds page entirely. However, it is not possible at this stage, but we've done whatever we can to flag out to creditors that page is not relevant. Refer to the pages that are relevant, which is 18 July page, rebalancing page, and preliminary creditors list.
You will be giving us tokens in this value, in the restructured value, right?
We'll be giving you the tokens.
Everything goes well, you will be giving tokens in the new value, which is a reduced value.
We'll be giving tokens, yes, correct. And the number of tokens that we'll be distributing will be it aims to give all creditors, including yourself, an equal share.
Because when you show the portfolio, you're showing the reduced value. For example, I had WazirX token 450 numbers. For example, I'm saying 500 numbers. You're showing in the restructured value also, you're showing 500 only the quantity, but the value seems to be very less. Looks like 50% or less than 50%. So will you be giving us the same? I don't understand that. Maybe I don't understand. Maybe you can clarify that if you can.
Okay. I'll quickly answer your question, Rajiv, because this is more, we are focusing on scheme process in this town hall, but I'll give you a quick answer. And then maybe you can clarify with enquiries at WazirX.com. Zeta team, please note Rajiv's query and reach out back to him. Broadly speaking, Rajiv, you're referring to the WazirX token, right? WRX?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the WazirX token is a special case because there's insufficient market liquidity to go out to the market and buy WazirX tokens to distribute to you, right? A holder of the WazirX tokens. So
No,
for
that was just an
WazirX
example.
tokens,
It was just an example that I
yeah,
quoted. Maybe
yeah,
XRP. For example, XRP I had 365, and
yeah.
even now it shows 365, but the value is less. So what am I mean, suppose everything goes well, what will I receive? That's what I wanted to understand.
For all tokens, you'll receive the tokens that are set out in the rebalancing page. And that token multiplied by the price as at the time of the rebalancing gets you for that token about 85.3% recovery in line with all other tokens and all other creditors. Now for some token balances they'll be higher and some token balances they'll be lower, right? That is dependent on the price movement of the token within the market itself. That's beyond our control. We can only rebalance to the extent that we are able to go and buy tokens in the market. So in order to be fair to creditors, we're not able to guarantee a token recovery, but we can target and deliver a fair USD percentage recovery and the token balances that get you there.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Rajiv. Please, the Zeta team will reach out to you and help you with your queries. We want to be as helpful as possible here. So do join our next town hall, and you can ask questions on the terms and of the scheme at that one as well.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time. Okay, Nirav or Zafar, do you want to go ahead and ask your question? You can unmute and ask.
Yeah, I had a question around. So earlier we were talking about that 45% of the portfolio, or means the total tokens were stolen,
Yeah.
and we were talking about nearly 65% of recovery. Now we are saying we are around 85%. I
Yes.
wanted to understand how we got to this number. Is it because the value of tokens have increased since then?
Yes,
And
that's exactly correct, Nirav.
Okay.
I mean, we started this process in about August 2024, right? The platform got hacked in July 2024. We were brought on board August 24. We started the process. But over the last few months of 2024, basically prices in the cryptocurrency market went up. As such, the value of the tokens that we held, remaining tokens that we held, also went up. Now, the intention of this scheme has always been to deliver all the upside on the tokens that we held to creditors to the extent possible. We know creditors want upside. There has been upside, and we're delivering the upside. That's why initially in July 2024, basically we were left at 55% asset to liability value because 45% was hacked and stolen. We have been able to capitalize on this market upswing, and now instead of 55% USD recovery, we're delivering 85%. All the upside on that has gone back to creditors and will be distributed from Rebalanced net liquid platform assets from the first distribution in a couple of months' time.
Okay, and when the scheme is implemented and we have received all the tokens or the USD which is supposed to be given to creditors, will we be able to withdraw everything if we want, or will there be any restriction on that?
Yeah. So the distribution is defined as making the tokens available for withdrawal, subject to certain things. I think you understand that certain requirements will need to be achieved first. For example, KYC. It's just creditors need to ensure that their KYC is updated and compliant with the requirements of the platform. This is not a new thing. Even when the platform was operating normally, in order to make your withdrawals, you will need to complete the KYC. So that is one such example of a restriction and other applicable terms of the platform. But broadly speaking, Nirav, the withdrawals will be made available in a similar way to what it was previously, pre-hack, pre-restructuring.
Okay. Okay.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
That clarifies my question. Yeah. Thanks.
Zafar or Vinay, do you want to unmute and ask?
Yes. So I just want to know what is the plan for the remainder 14.78% of the funds. So now we are planning for 85.22% of the funds, right? What is
Yeah.
the next plan for the remaining percentage of the funds?
I get it. Vinay, we're looking to focus on the scheme process here a bit more, but I'll give you a quick answer so that we can give other creditors opportunities for the scheme process questions, if that's okay.
Yes, yes.
Great. So the 85.3% comes from the net liquid platform assets that we have rebalanced and have on hand, right? That goes out in the first distribution. You guys get 85.3% on a fair basis. The remaining 14 point something percent comes from a combination of the net profits shared from reactivation of the WazirX platform and a commencement of a new business contemplated as a decentralized exchange. Basically, future profits from the WazirX platform and the DEX will be put aside and shared with creditors. That's about half of the recoveries, the 14%. The remaining will be from recoveries of illiquid wallet assets and stolen assets. We are in an ongoing process to recover all of these. We will recover some. We may recover a lot. We may recover less. It is an unclear process. It's very uncertain. We will, however, have the time and the funding under the scheme to pursue this as best we can, because ultimately, everything that we recover from pursuing these tokens will be issued back to creditors. About half of the 14% is expected from that. If we recover more, for example, if we ultimately recover, instead of 14% from profits and recovered assets, we get 25%, right? So we have 85% upfront and 25% on top of that. The total 110%, it all goes back to creditors. We are not capping it at 100%. Whatever we can recover of the stolen assets will go back to creditors, full stop. You can get more, and we'll do everything that we can to make sure that you get more.
Okay, I totally get it, and I totally support you. And just curious to know, means like what is the plan for the creditors who are not agreeing with the plan or the scheme?
So the good question, Vinay, and this is also a scheme process question. The nature of a scheme is that we put out a proposal to creditors. We put out a process to allow creditors to vote on the proposal. And if we get if we get support from enough creditors in this scheme, in this voting, right? Basically, all creditors will be subject to the scheme. So it doesn't mean that we need every single creditor to agree before we can pass it. We only need majority by count, at least 50% by count of creditors present and voting, and at least 75% by value of creditors present and voting. Once we get that, and we get the scheme sanctioned by court, the scheme will bind all creditors, regardless of whether they voted for or against the scheme.
Okay, got it. And one last question, maybe this is regarding the redistribution. Say, for example, if I have a Solana coin, I'll just take a sample number. If I'm having 10 coins as such, altcoin, and as per the rebalanced portfolio from where I can see only 5 coins. And there are no such USD that is provided for that altcoin. So what is your call on this?
Okay, so you're saying that there's no USD value attributed in the rebalancing page to the Solana coin?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, Vinay, we'll check that for you. That could be an issue with the back end on refreshing a price. We'll check that and we'll get back to you. Zeta team, please note Vinay's user ID so that we can correspond with him. But ultimately, Vinay, whether we are able to pull a price from our end or not, you will get those coins back, right? And once you get 5 sold coins back, you'll be able to, subject to the KYC requirements, you'll be able to withdraw it off platform. And let's say you move it to another exchange where you can find a price for it. You can then sell it there. Just because we're not reflecting a price right now, doesn't mean you will not be able to find a price, right? There may be various pockets of liquidity around that you may be able to sell it at. That's up to you. But you'll be getting the tokens back if the scheme is effective.
Okay, got it. And what is the plan for the WazirX? So how are you handling the WazirX coins? Means like, is there any special case to handle these creditors who are holding WazirX coins?
Yes. So for WazirX coins, it's a special case. As I was telling Rajiv just now, basically, for WazirX coins, there will be a partial compensation. We don't have the WazirX coins have very low liquidity right now. We're not able to go out and buy WazirX coins as part of the rebalancing. So we have a volume of WazirX coins now, and that volume is not enough to give WazirX holding creditors 85.3%. So in order to ensure that their value is not compromised, for example, if the WazirX coins that we hold on hand can give 50% recoveries, right? We will be doing a partial compensation in USDT for the remaining 35.3%. So you add 50% value from WazirX coins that we have, plus 35.3% recovery from USDT partial compensation. Yeah, that gets you to 85.3. So that's for WazirX coins and a few other coins with lower liquidity that we're not able to practically rebalance.
Okay. Yep. Got you. And thanks all for your work. I totally support you during this time.
Thanks, Vinay. Appreciate your support.
Thank you.
Zafar or Anand?
Yeah, hi,
Zafar,
can I go next?
Sorry, Anand, I think Zafar has been here for a while. Shall we give him an
Okay.
opportunity to speak first? Thank you.
Yeah, hi, Jess. How are you?
I'm good, Zafar. How are you? Thanks for joining.
Yeah, all good here. But not all good related to, our WazirX balances. We are waiting since a long time. So I just wanted to know, I have a few confusion regarding a few points. Could you please clear those points? So one of the rebalance tokens. So now the rebalance tokens are fixed, right?
Yes.
Okay. So by when when WazirX platform will start? WazirX will restart, so we can access our when we access our tokens. So these are the tokens we'll get, and whatever the price will be, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay. And I have one more question. Right. By when the exchange will restart the process, and by when users can access their tokens, or they can sell, or all the other process will start by when?
Good question, Zafar. Let me start by saying that we ask for your support in the scheme because we need the scheme to be effective before you can get your tokens back. So if you vote for and support the scheme, and enough creditors support the scheme to allow it to become effective, we are aiming for the first distribution of the tokens rebalanced for you and other creditors in April. We're trying as hard as possible to push it to get it done in April. However, a lot of it is subject to court timelines, so potentially it may slip a bit. But what we are hoping to do is get this done quickly, and then reactivate the WazirX platform quickly as well. Because the faster we reactivate it, the faster we can start trading again, the faster we can generate profits and share it with you as a creditor.
Okay, so as you mentioned, first redistribution. So it will be on partial basis, or is there any percentage that you guys are?
No. The first distribution will make everything that you see on the rebalancing calculator, the rebalancing page, available for withdrawal, subject to KYC requirements and other terms of the platform. It's not partial. So if you clear your KYC, you adhere to the applicable terms of the platform, and if the scheme is effective, you'll be able to withdraw 85.3, all of it. We are not restricting you on only a part of it, right? Then that's not all. If you support the scheme is effective, we'll be able to share profits with you in the future for more distributions. And when we recover stolen assets, we'll give that back to creditors as well.
Okay, yeah, we can understand that, but it should be the priority that users can access their fund as quick as possible, because
absolutely no. Believe me, Zafar, that is my top priority. Me and my team We are working hard with Zeti to do everything that we can to get creditors the outcome. We want creditors to get the outcome, and that is what we have put a scheme forward for.
George, one more question I just wanted to add. So, is there anything you guys are planning that with regarding liquidity, when exchange will restart? So all the users will start to withdraw their tokens or withdraw their funds. So how you guys can manage liquidity at that time? Is there any plan for that?
Yes, Zafar, that there is. That's a really good question, and I think it'll be best addressed by Nisha and the company at the next town hall. It's a good question. There is a plan. We are working hard on structuring the reopening to ensure that we have the best chance at recovering as a crypto exchange and holding on to as many credit and many users as possible so that we can recover strong.
Okay, George, before closing, I just wanted to add one more thing, because it is very hard to communicate with WazirX. We have the help team. We can access, but there is nobody who can access. Who can answer the particular question. They have the automatic system. If we can select those questions or those automatic questions, they can answer that. But nobody can reply on particular custom questions. So it is very hard to communicate with WazirX. So before next town hall or next any further process, please, it is my humble request that please prioritize these things. Users are on very bad condition, they need to access their fund. So please be prioritize these things first. At least users can access their fund. After that, the stolen amounts or all the other things that will continue. But first of all, please prioritize that users can access their fund. Thanks all.
Absolutely, Zafar. We're on it. Thank you so much for your time and attention.
Thank you so much.
Hey, George.
Okay.
Hi. Can I go next?
Yes, Anand, please do.
Yeah. So, George, my question is related to the timeline and the rebalancing methodology.
Yeah.
So I'll use my case as an example to explain my question. So I'm holding XRP in my portfolio. So from the day of the hack, the XRP value has gone up 6 times as of 17th of Jan. And as per the rebalancing NLPA, I'm only getting 14% of my coins as the share, which is the 85% of the value. And since 17 Jan, the XRP has fallen by 30%, which makes my portfolio share at the moment at 60% of the value, which is not the 85%. And this is the value I'm going to get today. Okay. And going back to the tweet which Nishal has posted, that so everyone can keep up the coins are fixed as per 17th rebalancing, and they can benefit from the upwards or the downward movements of the coin, and the coin share is not going to go back. So my question comes back, like being SRP, which has contributed so much for the covering of the losses due to the hack, which has gone 6 times. Now we are at severe disadvantage because the coin has now fallen back and we are getting only 14% share of our portfolio, right? So what is the significance of January 17th as a date for selecting for rebalancing and not 18th July? That's my first question. And the second thing is, if from the day one, the point was that you are pooling all the assets together, why 17 Jan has been used as a day from which the users get to benefit the upward and downward movement and not 18 July? Because see, I was personally holding some coins which has gone up the value, and I should be benefited based on the 18 July balance. And also one more thing, if we vote for this scheme, will that make us by default a creditor, or is it something like a legal term which makes us a creditor by voting into the scheme?
Okay. Good questions, Anand. I'll quickly address the second question first, and then we'll go to the first question. It is voting. What you are a creditor in the scheme by virtue of the balances that you had on the WazirX platform as at 18 July, and as creditor, you have the right to vote and participate in this scheme. So if you don't vote in the scheme, you are still a creditor. And if you vote in the scheme, you're still a creditor. The concept of the scheme is that if the scheme gets enough support from creditors, basically all creditors will be bound by the effective scheme. But ultimately, whether you vote or not does not affect whether you're a creditor or not. You are a creditor because you had balances as at 18 July. So I hope that addresses your second question. On the first question, I think it's an excellent question, and I'll address it quickly, and we can talk about it a bit more in the next town hall as well. So the nature of the rebalancing is to go into the market and through market transactions, balance the allocation of value on the asset side in the same way that the value is allocated across the liability side. As such, there's only one source of pricing that you can actually obtain realistically and use realistically in a rebalancing, and that is the current market prices. So to answer your question on why 17 January, right, Anand, we didn't choose 17 January because it was higher on some specific coins or lower on specific coins. In order to treat this process fairly, it's not appropriate to choose a date on the basis of a certain advantage to certain coins or disadvantage to other coins. Ultimately, we are trying to move the rebalancing along as efficiently as possible in the timelines for the scheme to allow us to complete the rebalancing before we actually put the scheme to use, so that creditors have a clear view on what the scheme means for them. That was important to us, and I think it's also important to you. As such, the 17th January date is a date that fell within the period that we had stated for rebalancing. Operationally speaking, moving as fast as possible while being careful and measured in the approach to the rebalancing, we arrived at a set of prices as at 17 January. Now, why can't it be 18 July, right? It's simple. It's because 18 July is in the past. In order to rebalance, you need current market prices. We can't go back in time to get the 18 July prices anymore. It's simply not possible. And if we transact the rebalancing at anything other than live market prices that we actually obtain in the market, the rebalancing will simply not work. Conceptually, it needs to be carried out at live prices. And the prices as of 17 January were based on live prices actually achieved in the rebalancing itself. Now, it may be the timing may be unfortunate for some tokens and fortunate for others, but ultimately the decision that we made was not based on whether it was advantageous to certain tokens or not. And on the XRP front, I think it's unfortunate that the XRP dropped after that time. But I think it's also worth noting that we don't have control over what comes next. We don't have control over the crypto markets. And I think broadly speaking, the creditors have asked for market exposure to rebalance tokens. So not an absolutely ideal scenario for XRP holders like yourself, Anand. But the way I see it is that this is still an advantageous outcome in a scheme, because while the value may have dropped, you're still getting XRP, right? We're not giving you fiat, and you're getting your XRP if a scheme is effective in a couple of months as opposed to in 2 years. I think the key thing here is that getting access to the tokens early has significant value to creditors like yourselves, because that allows you the flexibility to redeploy those assets into the crypto market as you see fit, as opposed to in the alternative in a liquidation where we could potentially get delays in the distributions of up to maybe 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. There's a lot of risk and uncertainty. And with that risk, delay, and uncertainty, and the fact that you get it back in fiat, there's no even potential upside for you there, which is why, even though it's not the best and ideal situation for you, Anand, I think it's still overall a better outcome than trying to wait it out to the alternative, which is a liquidation. And I hope you can see from the explanation that we have gone about this in a principled process, and ultimately we're just trying to be fair to all creditors here.
So one follow-up question. So in this case, right, like you mentioned that XRP holders are at severe disadvantage. So will this qualify as a dispute? to be raised. Because see, when you said from the beginning it is going to be equitable, all users will be treated equally, but you are also saying here that certain users, like for example, XRP is having disadvantage by this restructuring, which also means that should we vote no for this rebalancing? This is what you're
No,
suggesting?
no, that's not what I'm suggesting, Anand. I'm not for a moment suggesting that you have been disadvantaged by the restructuring. The restructuring is what it is. The overall outcome at the time of the rebalancing, based on what we wanted to deliver to creditors, based on the situation that we can control, is an equitable 85.3%, right? Everyone gets that. But what we can't do is control what happens after that. Creditors want the market exposure, but we can't control the market exposure. We can only give creditors what creditors want. So I wouldn't say that you have been disadvantaged by the restructuring, but I think what I'm trying to get to here with respect to your question specifically is that the dispute process is not a dispute for the restructuring. It's for the restructuring. It is a dispute solely for the claim. So if you disagree with your claim balances, that's what the dispute process is for. As such, if you submit a dispute about the outcome of the rebalancing in that dispute process, such a dispute submitted like that will be automatically rejected, because that dispute process does not cover the asset rebalancing. It is purely for claims.
Yeah, so this is the only option then I don't have to support this. That leaves me with no other option to wiggle room, right? So I have to take the losses.
You don't have to support that, Anand, but I think I'd just like to flag that if you don't support it, you're probably not going to get a recovery anytime in the near term. Small or large, the recovery is likely to be delayed by years because there's a lot of risk and uncertainty.
There is no proof, right? Like it will take years. It is just a speculation from your end that it will take years.
It's not speculation, Anand. You sound like someone who has read the explanatory statement. The explanatory statement, if you refer to Appendix 3, right at the end of Appendix 3, there is a liquidation analysis with a clear timeline set out for the liquidation. You combine the timeline for the liquidation with the uncertainty and delay associated with resolution of the dispute in the first place. That's a lot of delay, and we set it out line by line. So I would urge you to have a look at that section. It's literally the last 5 pages of Appendix 3, and that will show you that this is not speculation. We have worked through this. We have provided evidence of why we think there is going to be significant delay in a liquidation. It is going to take years. Whereas we're able to provide you in 2 months.
Guys, yeah, thank you.
I appreciate your time, Anand. Thank you for your time. Okay. Thanks everyone for your participation. We have some further questions, but we are at time. If you have any questions, please feel free to refer to enquiries@wazirx.com. Alternatively, you can dial in to participate in live Q&A for the 7th Town Hall on 19 February 2025, 8 p.m. SGT or 5:30 p.m. IST. At that 7th Town Hall, which is a formal scheme meeting as part of the scheme process, we will explain the scheme terms and recoveries to creditors and address in detail the queries that creditors have in respect of the scheme. Thank you for your time. This recording will be on YouTube for your future reference, and the slides that we discussed on scheme process and timeline will be circulated shortly by the ZI team to all scheme creditors to aid your navigation of the scheme process.